Okay, as I seek to almost begin, I just want to check on whether we have Alban Biosat with us. Alban, are you with us?
Yeah, he's joining.
Okay, great. Thank you. And also, just before we formally begin the the proceedings, I would just like to welcome everybody and underscore that we will be live streaming the event. So you'll probably see that prompt come up, that even as we participate within the Zoom format, we shall also be live streaming the event on our other social platforms, and that we also have interpretation available. You will see the icon on interpretation, and you can pick either English or French, and that should be able to give you the interpretation you require. Majda, I think I am now in a position to officially commence the program. Do we have other people in the waiting room coming in?
No, not for the moment. I think we can start for now. If there are people joining, we'll let them in. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, good afternoon or good morning, depending on your time zone. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you to this event entitled Embracing Civic Technology to Amplify African Voices, that is being hosted by the Charter Project Africa. And we are using this platform as an opportunity to unveil an exciting component of our project, where we will be unveiling 4 successful applicants to what we call democratic governance initiatives that are aimed at boosting civic participation within the context of democratic governance, and in particular working very closely with the African governance architecture. Just to give a small quick backdrop of the Charter Project Africa, the Charter Project Africa is an EU-funded Pan-African initiative that brings together 6 consortium members with the aim of advancing civic engagement on democratic governance and boosting the implementation of the African Charter on Democracy, Elections, and Governance. One of the key plans for this project, and which is what brings us here today, is to elevate the use of civic technology to boost civic participation both at the national and continental level, in as far as addressing democratic governance issues are concerned. Civic technology being those aspects of technology or digital platforms that can be used to encourage the public to be able to ask concrete questions on democratic governance, maybe by harnessing evidence and disseminating it for wider public debate, but also encouraging or shrinking the spaces between those who are in power or are duty bearers and those who they're supposed to serve, the citizenry. And so it is in this context that we want to officially kick off this aspect of our project, where, as I just mentioned, we will be highlighting 4 successful applicants who want to bring forward innovative approaches to using civic technology to addressing different themes of democratic governance, and in particular engaging with the African governance architecture towards that effort. So on that basis, I will be welcoming a series of our partners to make some opening remarks to kick us off and just provide a broader perspective of what their input or what their perspective to civic technology and democratic governance will be. So I will start by extending the floor to the European Union delegation to the African Union. As I mentioned, the European Union is the core supporter for the Charter Project Africa and therefore this initiative. And speaking on their behalf is Mr. Alban Biosat. So Alban, if you are with us, the floor is yours.
Yes, good afternoon, Andrew and partners, dear participants. I don't know, can you hear me well?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear, Alban.
Okay, because there's rain here in Addison, so the connection is pretty low, slow. Thanks for giving me the floor once again, and welcome to you all to this online event. I'm here to represent the EU delegation to the African Union, which is a close partner to the African Governance Platform and a keen supporter of the Charter Africa project, indeed, which organized this call for proposal. A few words of introduction. I recall that the last time we engaged such together, it was to celebrate the anniversary of the ACDEG, the African Charter for Democracy, Elections and Governance, which is a key EU policy whose implementation is central to promote, protect and entrench democratic governance in Africa. And among the various points that we raised and were the threats associated with perceived closure of civic space, and mentioned the challenges associated with digital practices and tools that require appropriate regulations, notably in the area where significant debate is taking place. And I recall this debate today as you will be unveiling the winners of the call for civic tech initiatives aimed at fostering citizens' participation and at bringing people's voices closer to decision-making at continental level. Practically to facilitate engagement with the various AGA organs on governance matters. This is the core objective of this project of yours, the Charter Africa project, that we, the EU, gladly chose to support. And our objective indeed is to encourage the emergence or even expansion of youth-led initiatives that are able to seize the opportunities associated with information and communication technologies, notably. And this project is thus about rewarding creativity and entrepreneurial drive as triggers for imagining digital solutions to identify societal needs. Now, civic techs typically use and produce data, and thus need to operate in a safe and trustworthy environment. Which brings me back to the need for designing appropriate regulations for data collection and sharing. This is a complex and definitely fast changing, affected by multiple concerns, whether technological, economic, or confrontation of models. You has gained some recognized degree of leadership. Cooperation with the EU and initiatives like yours, which pursue other practical objectives, can also help bring the matter of digital governance in Africa to the fore. So clearly we put a lot of hopes in this Africa project, and we're keen to listen, to witness how it's able to uncover some Africa. And I know that this is shared by our close EU partners, with whom we've often discussed how to look for new ways to team up with civil society that policy matters effectively deliver to citizens. I shall stop here with these words of support and hope, and I look forward to discovering the winners, who I already congratulate in advance. I thanks Andrew, and over to you.
Thank you much, Alban, for those welcoming remarks, which are greatly appreciated and underscore the essence of the objectives we have with this initiative, which is essentially to reward innovation and foster greater growth for the potential of having digital solutions to some of the social questions and debates we have around the issue of democratic governance. Moving swiftly on, the other set of welcoming remarks will also be delivered by another valuable partner to the Charter Project Africa, especially with regards to the aspects of the grants we are about to unveil today. And that is the GIZ, the German Development Corporation, who through the African Union Civic Tech Fund have been supporters of this initiative, even as they also implement a broader engagement with regards to fostering greater use of civic technology in realizing the Agenda 2063 of the African Union. And so just to fill us in more about their perspectives and their support for this project will be Sylvester Ademola Adesina, who's an advisor with the GIZ. And we're very appreciative that he's been able to join us for this event. So Ademola, the floor is yours. Karibu sana.
Thank you very much, Andrew. And I'm glad to be here. Maybe I start with that. I'm very happy to be here to speak on behalf of GIZ as we unveil these 4 grantees within the context of the Civic Tech Fund Africa. Our program, our GIZ program, is called Citizens Engagement and Innovative Data Use for Africa's Development. We fondly call it Datasipation. And as you can probably tell from the name, we largely collaborate to improve engagements between AU organs and citizens by combining both digital and non-digital approaches towards good governance. Since 2020, within the current phase of our projects, we've experimented with different approaches and methods to support pragmatic, homegrown, and like Andrew said, technology-supported interventions on the continent to drive citizens-led engagement in governance processes. A couple of months ago, together with the AUC team, we supported the AU Civic Tech Fund, providing grants up to 20,000 euros to young people with innovative ideas around citizen participation, obviously using digital. We are very proud to support this call that is specifically targeted at citizens' action in the context of the African governance architecture. Andrew spoken a little bit about why that's important, and I'm glad that we actually have with us today my boss, Ambassador Salah Ahmad, who will speak a little about this. But I would like to highlight 2 important reasons why we think that widening use of tech in citizens' engagement is critical to reaching the objectives that we look at in the context of the EAGA. First, I think it's important to continually remind ourselves that tech provides an opportunity to increase not just quantity, so quantity in the terms of widening the numbers in engagement, but the quality of engagement itself. I believe, and I think we believe, that widening the discourse helps refresh the conversation, and hopefully that then reforms the structure that helps us build a better culture around governance. I think the second thing is, introducing or widening the use of tech in our civic engagement helps us with flattening barriers, barriers of access, barriers of capacity, barriers of efficiency. And I'm glad that and the 4 initiatives we'll be speaking to today, we'll be listening to today, we'll speak a little bit around how they've or they plan to use tech to flatten barriers within the context of civic engagement. From our perspective, just to emphasize that we are fully aligned with the vision of the African Union, obviously in the context of the AGA, and we appreciate the support or the willingness to support citizen-driven approaches in implementation. We'll obviously continue to seek opportunities within our current commissions to create opportunities to drive impact and to enable scale with a distinct focus on homegrown, sustainable experiments. One of the things I'm happy about is we were not very prescriptive within the context of this. So for us, we're looking at ideas that already exist that speak to realities on the ground by people who have the capacity and the knowledge on the ground to do this. Our responsibility is secondary. Our responsibility is to support that. Finally, maybe just to say that we're quite mindful of potentials presented by multi-stakeholder collaboration such as this. One of the things I'm happy about is when I look at, say, the banner for this, you'd probably see like 6, 7 logos of organizations, and we continue to remain open to such collaborations, obviously to drive impact as described and designed by the AU. Finally, I would like to say congratulations to the 4 initiatives that we'll present today. And I hope that this is the start of larger collaborations within the context of citizens' engagement and using tech for citizens' engagement. Thank you very much, and over to you, Andrew.
Thank you very much, Ademola, and for also very well situating the current initiative under the Charter Project Africa as not being a standalone initiative, but rather one that stands alongside a wider ecosystem of enhancing citizen engagement within the African Union, but then also particularly utilizing civic technology. And so we can already see the potentials for very valuable synergies that can exist with this initiatives that are investing in civic technology across the board from different stakeholders. And that is something we will be very glad to keep exploring even as our successful applicants begin to roll out their innovative projects. But just as Ademola mentioned, one key plank of realizing that vision of a citizen-driven African Union has to be platforms that invite public engagement and allows greater coherence and coordination amongst the various African Union organs that possess the mandate and the responsibilities to facilitate principles of democratic governance and to facilitate civic engagement within that regard. And it's for this reason, it gives me great honor to welcome Ambassador Salah Hamad, who is the head of the African Governance Architecture, African Peace and Security Architecture platform, AGA-APSA. And he has immense wealth of experience and knowledge around activating civic engagement or public participation within the context of democratic governance and human rights, as well as the rule of law, and has invested significantly over the years in enhancing that level of creating spaces for input from the public with regards to shaping the African Union agenda and vision for its citizenry. So it's on that basis that I extend the invitation to Ambassador Salah Hamad to give his set of remarks and therefore set the stage for us to finally welcome the successful applicants and our project. So Ambassador Salah, the floor is yours. Karibu sana.
Asante sana, Andrew, for your welcoming remarks, and I wish to sincerely thank you for inviting the AGA-APSA Secretary to be part of this ceremony. Through you, I would like to also extend my greetings to my dear friend and brother from the European Union, and my dear friend and brother Ademola Adesina from GIZ, and all those who are here today around the table. Morning, afternoon, wherever you are, and welcome, and greetings from the African Union. Indeed, the AGA-APSA Secretariat has been following this process of selections of the winners of this competition, and we are grateful that the process has finally ended with the selection of 4 winners, grassroots organizations that will be supporting the project, the Charter project, in its implementation of goals and activity and objectives that have been identified for the project. Indeed, also the principle of democracy they are in fact incomplete without the participation of all stakeholders, including civil society. And that is why the African Union, and particularly the AGA-APSA Secretariat, gives the involvement of civil society greater attention and support. We've been supporting the project since the beginning, and will always be there to support this project. Why? Because the ACTEC, as an important treaty, is a treaty that represent the real African shared values in promoting democracy, good governance, and rule of law, as well as the promotion and protection of human and people's rights. So the Charter is extremely important, and therefore we count heavily on civil society to assist the African Union with its campaign to achieve universal ratification as well as implementation and domestication at the national level. The Charter is not just an instrument that is promoting democracy, good governance, and rule of law, but in fact, it's a charter that represents, as I mentioned earlier, the African shared values, and also it is the African jurisprudence and contribution to the international legal frameworks. So therefore, promoting this charter at the national is extremely important, and advocating for universal ratification is also one of the goals that we've been working for since the establishment of the AGA-APSA Secretariat. The role of civil society cannot be in fact, is extremely important simply because civil society at the national level are closer to the people, to the citizens, but also they could play that role of educating the people on the provisions of the Charter, on the existence of the Charter, and also, of course, try to lobby and advocate for the ratification, the implementation, and domestication of this very important charter at the national level. The Charter project for the AGA-APSA Secretariat is one of the most important partnership that we are currently engaged in, and simply because it is a youth-driven program, but also because it is also bringing in the aspect of civil society participation in this process of promoting democracy, good governance, and rule of law. I wish to seize this opportunity to congratulate the winners and to invite them to play an active role in this process. Winning this competition, of course, is just the beginning, but the road is full of challenges, and the road is long, and together we will be able to get there where the Charter is universally ratified, universally implemented, domesticated, and also the Charter is as a document or as an instrument is becoming closer to the African people, so they can know of its existence and also try to understand its provisions. That way, we will collectively promote democracy and build Africa, the Africa that we want and the Africa that we deserve. Before I conclude, I wish to seize this opportunity to thank our colleagues in the European Union delegation for all the support, financial and technical support provided to the AU and to our civil society in Africa. And also the same goes for GIZ, for all the support that is provided to the African Union and to the African civil society, the wider African civil society. This support is extremely important and helpful in allowing the African Union to move ahead with the implementation of Agenda 2063 and the implementation of the various programs and activities that have been as part of this process of the implementation of Agenda 2063. Once again, we are grateful to be part of this process. I wish you all the best, and I wish to thank sincerely our dear brother Andrew for bringing us this afternoon. And I wish you, Andrew, and your colleagues all the best of wishes, of course. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Salah, for those insightful remarks, and again, setting the stage to embrace the successful applicants that we have, and laying out essentially what agenda lays out for them. As already stated earlier, we are looking to enhance not just the quantity, but the quality of engagement between civil society, the wider public, and our duty bearers within the African Union. And we are also trying to foster the ownership of this very lofty ideals of the African Charter on Democracy, Elections, and Governance by getting civil society and the public to lead the charge on calling for the successful implementation and, as you highlighted, universal ratification of this critical instrument. Now, we have reached the very valuable segment of our event where we now get to unveil the successful applicants. But even as I begin to invite them to engage with us and share their very innovative and creative ideas with us, I would like to first just lay out a few modalities for our wider engagement. And that is, first of all, that we do have some social media handles that we can use to track and comment on the conversation, particularly on Twitter. So if you are on Twitter, I would encourage you to tweet and engage with the hashtag charter.africa and the hashtag DigiTrends. And also, because we are trying to maximize on the time and focus on the ideas that our successful applicants will be providing to us, I would also encourage that you send in the questions as they present the ideas. You can send in your questions or your comments within this chat box. And you can also, again, use the Twitter hashtag CharterAfricanDigiTrends to continue engaging. And I have colleagues in the background who will be tracking the comments and the questions that come out in the chat box, and we can then direct them towards the successful applicants. We have 4 total applicants in number, and we will be giving them the opportunity to give a snapshot of their successful idea and how they intend to implement it, and a bit of a backdrop about themselves. And they will be doing this in a time span of 7 minutes each, after which we will give them about 3 to 4 minutes to engage with any questions that may come up from those of us who want to understand more about their ideas. So without much further ado, I will introduce the first successful applicant, who is the MS Training Center for Development and Cooperation. Congratulations to the MS Training Center for Development and Cooperation. And I will now be inviting their representatives to come forth and utilize their 7 minutes to give us an overview of their successful project and what it will do to contribute to the engagement on this issue. Karibu sana.
Thank you so much, Andrew. I think we'll go right in with just introducing ourselves briefly and letting you know what we are all about. This is the Africa Unplugged series by MSTCDC and ULEAD Africa, presented by myself, Yona Kemejisha, and my colleague, Franklin Mireri. The problem we have identified is a lack of dedicated spaces where youth and their leaders can have meaningful discourse on governance at national, regional, and continental levels. And we did a study in 2021, a regional study, to look into youth engagement, assessing youth engagement in political governance. And one of the key findings that we made is that African youth, the majority of them, are not well versed in vital instruments such as the African Charter on Democracy, Elections, and Governance, the ACDEG. And I'm sure that we can agree furthermore that traditional methods of in-person workshops have radically transformed post-COVID-19. And that brings us to our solution, the Africa Unplugged series, which is an upscale of an existing program that we host weekly for young people to interact in a more laid-back environment. And now we are taking it to the next level with Africa Unplugged series, which will be a convergence of podcast technologies, social media platforms, and high-definition audio-visual live streaming. Each podcast will be simultaneously recorded in audio as well as video format. Now, this project consists a number of vital activities. 5 key activities. First off is the 6 episodes of the podcast, engaging various AGA platform members and other relevant stakeholders. We view this as a unique opportunity for young people to directly engage with the guests that we'll be hosting from these platforms, people of influence, people who they'll be able to learn from and also be able to express their needs to. Number 2 is creating short clips, audio and visual from the podcasts for social media dissemination. The youth are on social media. If we want to reach them, we have to be there with them. So we want to use these clips in audio and video to take the conversation over there, really stir the conversations there and also direct that audience to the major podcast platforms for more in-depth engagement. Activity 3 is 2 continental virtual town halls. Now, this activity is focused on us going beyond the EAC region. We would be collaborating with our partners, our continental collaborating partners in different regions in order to make these virtual town halls happen. The idea is for us to have one for the Anglophone community, but also have another for the Francophone community. Activity 4 is the Unplugged series and the Africa Youth Pulse Check-in. Now, both of these are activities that are programs that we are already currently running. Both have been running for a couple of years, and we intend to use those as support programs for this new project, that we can have more focused conversations there with smaller audiences and just really have an even more intimate conversation about these things with people of influence. Activity 5 is a community activation event in Arusha, Tanzania, where we are based. And this activity would be coordinated by ourselves and our partner, Youth Hub Arusha. The idea behind this particular activity is to create an in-person experience in our own community, reach university students, and actually bring the conversation from the online and also into the in-person experience. Now we have a couple of target groups. Apologies. All right, we have a couple of target groups, and to begin with the youth in the EAC. In addition to the thousands of young Africans that we reach via our social media, we also want to reach, on a closer level our own youth here in our communities, that they will be able to be aware of instruments such as the ACDEG, that they will be able to know how they can meaningfully participate in political governance. Number 2 is the East African Community Secretariat, whose perspective on the role of regional bodies in the implementation of the ACDEG is vital, especially for this particular regional bloc. Number 3 is the AU Commission, in particular the Political, Peace and Security Department and the Democracy and Electoral Support Unit for discussions around elections with specific emphasis on this year's general election in Kenya, which we are already running a campaign on. Number 4 would be the AGA Secretariat, in particular the African Court on Human Rights, on Human and People's Rights, and the AU Advisory Board on Corruption, both of whom are also situated in Arusha, for discussions around democracy, elections, and good governance.
Thank you. Franklin Mireri taking over from my colleague. The impact that we hope to achieve is beyond the 7 points that we listed here. But first, we would love to connect African youth with the AU organs. That connection through the short video that will be going out, through the Q&As which will be sent out prior and during the live streamings is important. Secondly, as the speakers have mentioned in the opening statements, demystifying ACDEG, just simplifying it so that 18-year-old, a 30-year-old African youth can be able to understand the acronym and what it means to his or her life, and also have a dedicated space which is safe, virtual. Number 4, increase dissemination of information through those short videos we believe being shared on WhatsApp, being shared on TikTok. We will be able to reach the youth where they are. Number 5, a more youth-centric legislation cascading at the regional and national levels. And then number 6, building the capacity of African youth for increased participation. And finally, more importantly, is leaving a digital footprint on YouTube, on TikTok, on WhatsApp of content which will go beyond the lifespan of this project support. Next, please. We hope to use graphics, photos and video content, newsletters and articles and press releases to push this content out to the rest of Africa. And in terms of sustainability, we believe Going Africa is the way to go. This technology can be replicated in other regions, other RECs, and also the project funding will be able to continue from other sources beyond the project support period. Next. And the team is Ivan, Sodfa, Fiona, and myself, Franklin. Thank you.
Thank you Thank you very much to the MS Training Center for Development Cooperation team. Quite excited to see how that very good elaborate idea will translate into practice and link us, as we had said, to the key decision makers and the key constituency for the African Union, that is the public and in particular the youth who form the largest demographic on the continent. And thank you very much for sticking within the margins of the time we had described. I will, as I wait for some of my colleagues to continue to track any commentaries or questions that may arise, of which so far I don't seem to see any, I might maybe maximize on the time opportunity to move on to the next successful applicant, with the conditionality that if you do eventually feel that you had a comment or question to ask to MS Training Center for Development Cooperation, we can still revert to them as they still hold their few 3 minutes for Q&A. But now excited to introduce the second successful applicant, who is Dear South Africa, whom I will allow to again provide a snapshot of the innovative idea as they also introduce themselves to us. So congratulations, Dear South Africa, and if we have your representative online, I will gladly give you the floor to share your innovative idea with us. Do we have Dear South Africa online? I am waiting to see if we have a representative from Dear South Africa with us. Could my colleagues kindly check the roster and see if we have Dear South Africa with us?
Andrew, for the moment, I don't see anyone, so they might have dropped out. Maybe we can move to the next speaker and come back.
Okay, we will definitely come back to Dear South Africa. Some of the challenges of working with the digital format is, yes, we do have connection and disconnection challenges from time to time. But no worries, we will then move on to the third successful applicant who I believe is available with us. And that is a team from Kenya known as Mzalendo Trust. Congratulations, Mzalendo Trust, and we now welcome you to take the floor and share your innovative idea with us. I think I see the representative available.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, thank you so much, Andrew. And I'm joined by my team led by Sylvia and Philip. And we'll quickly, oh, sorry. Yeah, I think our presentation is already online. So again, thank you very much to the EU-DEL Africa Charter, GIZ and AGA for this opportunity. We are proud to be associated. And our project is around utilization of civic tech to facilitate public participation in governance processes. And this will do, yes, so that's the project. And I'll quickly now go to making the presentation. But before I do that, maybe for those that are joining us for the first time, a quick introduction about Mzalendo Trust. We are a non-partisan parliamentary monitoring organization. We promote open, inclusive, and accountable parliaments across Kenya and Africa. And we do this by creating and managing civic tech tools, producing evidence-based research, leading and facilitating advocacy and partnerships with parliaments, citizens, and relevant stakeholders. And this project speaks to these issues. Currently implementing a 5-year strategic plan that speaks to openness, inclusion, and accountability. And ultimately, our goal is to see a citizenry that is involved in the political processes, but also a governance architecture that is responsive and effective to Kenya's development goals. And as a snapshot, 17 years of existence now, we use a lot of civic tech tools and have a wide social media range. That's the number in terms of our reach, monthly impressions of about 850,000. currently convening multiple networks that all work to facilitate citizen engagement, including the Open Government Partnership, Civil Society Parliamentary Engagement Network, and IACSOF, which is the organization, the East African Society, Civil Society Organization Forum, of which we are members. Diving straight into the project that we proposed, maybe before we get to the civic tech tools, Sylvia, the next slide. Next. I want to skip those. So about the project, so we have multiple tools that we use to facilitate citizen engagement. That includes a searchable Hansard, includes an SMS platform, Boga na Mzalendo. But for this specific project, we sought to focus our attention on Dokeza, which is, Dokeza is Swahili for give your views. And the goal of this platform is to facilitate citizen and engagement in the legislative process. It's to share information, knowledge, and it's a platform that allows citizens to directly and conveniently provide feedback and participate in the legislative process. So the goal for this specific project will be to enhance the uptake of Dokeza within the country and within the region, and with a goal of boosting meaningful youth engagement in national and subnational legislative processes. But because we know that it's also a life-changing, it's a structural changing platform in how citizens engage in their legislative processes, we also seek to share this knowledge with other African PMOs across the region and continent. And the end goal is that we seek to enhance parliamentary transparency. So the initial focus will be on the East African region, but given that it is civic tech-based and network-based, we'll also be sharing this with other PMOs across the continent. So in terms of the specific activities, so we propose to do this under 4 approaches. One is developing fact sheets on Dokeza platform and information briefs designed for citizens and civil societies and parliament, just so that they understand how it works. We also look at engaging with media. This includes national and community radio stations and social media campaigns to publicize not just Dokeza, the platform, but the citizen participation in legislative processes. Under this project, we are also seeking to develop and share an East African Parliamentary Openness and Transparency Index. We recognize that public participation is very critical in legislative processes, and we want to see how the parliaments are doing around this area, and we'll have several categories that we'll use to measure that level of openness and transparency. And then finally, we'll convene workshops and forums with other PMOs in the East African countries and also within the region. Next. What do we see as the impact of our project? We see our broader impact as an engaged citizenry with awareness on Dokeza as a vibrant public participation tool. And also we see a strengthened African PMOs able to leverage on tech due to peer learning sessions, and therefore be able to hold their parliaments accountable, but most importantly also facilitate citizen engagement within their parliaments using the platform and also just using the knowledge that will have been learned. What are some of the other tools that, and then finally we have a parliamentary index, the baseline, will then help us measure the level of transparency and openness within the parliaments of the selected East African countries. And this then will inform the work going forward and the interventions that will be necessary to enhance the level of transparency, depending on the findings. Next slide, Sylvia. Maybe just going back to some of the other tools that we'll be able to leverage on and how we've cut the rest of our work on civic tech tools. I've talked about the Bonga na Mzalendo platform that will complement the Dokeza platform. We have reached in 43 counties, over 8,000 users already. And this is a bi-monthly platform that we use to engage citizens on issues of governance, democracy, and policy. We currently provide a searchable Hansard where citizens can also get information on Parliament. And we've also concluded the development of a vote match that is going to be a tool that is used in these elections to match voters with political parties of their choice. In a nutshell, I think that's it about the project and the 4 key areas and the expected outputs. The team that is going to lead this is Philip, who is our head of policy and partnerships, Jeff, who is in finance and administration, and Sylvia, who is a program officer. And my name is Caroline Gaite, and I'll provide the overall leadership as the executive director. Thank you very much, Andrew, and I look forward to the Q&A session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Caroline, for that very eloquent presentation and overview of Mzalendo, the tools that you've been able to develop and how you shall bring them to bear with regards to this vision of ours of boosting civic engagement with regards to democratic governance, not just at the national level, but at the continental level. And I will go straight into the chats where I see a question directed at Mzalendo, and it says, Dokeza seems to definitely be a promising platform. Would you kindly elaborate what kind of platform it is at the moment? Is it a website, an app, or a database? So perhaps you can respond to that, Mzalendo team.
Yes, so thank you, Franklin. It is currently it's a website. It's linked to the broader Mzalendo website, but once you log in, it's a website. Eventually, we hope to be able to create an app. But is it a database? Perhaps to the extent that it holds several data sets on legislation, on current legislation under consideration. We'll share a link to the platform just now. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. So a very exciting idea that advances one element of public engagement that I think we should all take more seriously, and that is being involved in the parliamentary process, because we all know the value of our democracy is rewarded through the vigilance we have with those we entrust with the responsibility to make our laws and articulate policies, and therefore having a direct channel of engagement and follow through with regards to parliamentary processes is definitely an essential feature of boosting public participation or public-driven decision-making in our governance affairs. So I will now go back to looking for yet another successful applicant to be able to provide an overview of their project. And maybe I will take this opportunity to circle back and see if we have our team from Dear South Africa with us.
Apologies, everyone. I think we've lost Andrew for the time being. My name is Leon Hemkemeyer. I think with most of you have also been in touch, working closely with Andrew. You're back, Andrew. Sorry. I'll pass back to you.
My apologies. It seems I got cut off my connection. So I'm not sure whether we got a response from Dear South Africa, Leon?
No. Let's continue then.
Then I will turn my attention to the next successful applicant as we continue to try and find a way of reaching out to their South Africa. Next successful applicant who we hope will be able to give an overview of their innovative project is Civic Institute. Congratulations, Civic Institute. Do we have a representative online?
Yes, we do.
Excellent, excellent. The floor is yours. Kindly proceed.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Tendai Murisa, and I'm the program lead here at Civic Institute. At Civic, we are based in Harare, Zimbabwe, and we work across mostly Southern Africa. We've done some work in the region beyond Southern Africa. Our work is mostly focused on strengthening citizen participation across 3 centers, which are, so we're a think tank, definitely. And we carry out research, we carry out policy advocacy, and we leverage technology for all the work that we do. And we are hoping that our work, putting citizens at the center of the processes that we do across civic engagement, and also nurturing philanthropy and communities, especially the solidarity aspects of African communities, and also promoting entrepreneurship and financial inclusion. In all this, we emphasize or we center our work around leveraging technology. We have our initiative that sort of brings us here is on the basis of replicating and expanding on the work that we've been doing in Zimbabwe since 2018, where we expanded our Zim Citizens Watch Tracker, which is literally a tracker, an online-based tracker where we track the performance of government based on the promises that are made during elections. Many political parties now, it has become fashionable for them to put together electoral manifestos. These are promises they are making to their constituencies before being voted into office. So we started off by tracking in Zimbabwe. We broke down the promises that were made in the ruling party's manifesto into 235, then clustered them around 8 clusters, which were economy, agriculture, social services, youth and gender, governance, politics, and local governance, and also issues to do with corruption. At the moment, we are expanding this work thanks to this initiative with Civic Tech Africa. We're expanding this initiative to track electoral promises that were made in Malawi and in Zambia using the existing technology platform. There's some new features that we'll put, but it mostly remains the same. The tracking process for us, it will contribute towards, on the one hand, we want to improve accountability on the part of government. And also, we've noticed that in many instances, when citizen-led processes are trying to engage governments, there's a challenge of data, there's a challenge of evidence, but the tracker can contribute towards addressing that gap. And also growing the digital advocacy footprint across Africa by introducing, on the one hand, technology-based policy trackers, but also beginning to train around these technologies. So one of the things that we'll be doing definitely is sharing this technology with partners in Zambia and in Malawi. So this is what it currently looks like if you're to go online to see what we've done. We have the Zam Citizens Watch, which is for Zambia. And in Zambia, there were 250 promises that were made. We have populated all the promises. We are now tracking the progress that has been made. In Malawi, there are 186 promises that were made. We are now tracking that, and we're organizing the information for ease of comparison around 5 clusters, which are economy, climate change, social service, corruption, and governance. So you find that this is what we'll be tracking in both countries. Then what do we track? How does the tracker work? On the one hand, we'll be tracking promises that have been kept. These are where work has started, but the promise has not yet been fully fulfilled. So maybe government has allocated resources, or a strategy has been deployed, has been announced, etc. Then there's another category called not commenced. There's nothing that has been done to fulfill that policy, to convert that promise into policy action. Then there are instances where there's modification. We're seeing this a lot, say due to COVID-19, governments had to reallocate resources, etc. So there's some modification on some promises. We also track that. We also track broken promises where government has gone against what it committed itself to do. So for instance, in Zimbabwe, which is also part of this cluster, the government of Zimbabwe has failed to allocate resources as per the Abuja Declaration towards health. So that is a broken promise. Was in their electoral promise, they said they'll meet the Abuja Declaration commitments. Then the promises are then clustered. I've already spoken about how we've clustered them into 5 categories. Then who are the beneficiaries of this work? Number one, office holders. We are hoping that this will increase the access by public office holders to objective and rigorous feedback mechanism on their performance. Then we also think citizens in the broad sense. Citizens, when they're making decisions on who to vote for, half the time they keep on being promised, but there's no way of saying, how did government do on the promises they made 5 years ago? We're hoping to cover that gap by saying that here's a tracker that can show you how this government performed. So if you're going to be making decisions on voting again, you can make it against a set of analytical data that exists, etc., etc. Then also CSOs, we see the tracker, especially for where we've piloted it. It is a support to policy advocacy organizations, think tanks around the work that needs to be done in terms of crafting advocacy messages, engaging government around electoral promises, but even going beyond just electoral promises, but engaging government around effectiveness and their performance. Budget performance, etc. Media houses use this tool a lot. You extract the reports that we produce every year. Based on the tracker, we produce what we call the barometer report, which is an annual report on the performance of that government based on the scoring across each sector. Then we're hoping that students from in the fields of political science, public policy, and development studies can also use this as a learning tool, as they are, especially at postgraduate level, as they are discussing the effectiveness of a democratic state or a democratic developmental state. So what will we produce here? We have committed ourselves to producing 2 new online platforms that provide real-time tracking and updating government actions in Malawi and Zimbabwe, and also keeping on updating the Zimbabwe one. 2 training workshops that update on updating and use of the policy trackers in the respective countries where we'll be working, and advocacy workshops with CSOs in Malawi and Zambia on how to use the tracker to enhance their advocacy and engagements with policymakers, and also a regional dialogue on nurturing accountability and policy implementation. What do we see this work contributing towards? We see it contributing towards an increase in information on government performance, a push for more evidence-based public dialogues on policy performance, and also the projects to contribute to improved government's accountability in implementing electoral promises. Because for us, democracy is just not about elections on their own, but democracy is about what happens in between elections. So we talk about what we call everyday democracy. So this contributes to that everyday conversation, reminding office holders about the promises they made and keeping on having a conversation around that. Because for us, democracy cannot just be limited to those 5 minutes of voting, but it has to be seen as part and parcel of a broader social contract around government implementing what they committed themselves to doing, and also then pushing on those sort of promises. I think that's it, and thank you so much for giving us this time.
Thank you so much, Eda. A very, again, innovative project, as we can see. I personally love the idea of a scorecard that actually tracks the promises that we see in the campaign trail as people look for our votes and seek the mandate to govern, and holding them accountable to those promises. The idea of kept, not commenced, modified, broken, or implemented, for me, is a very good scorecard that I think we can all relate with and even embrace within our local contexts. And so that, for me, becomes another very key aspect of boosting the notion of using civic technology to enhance transparency and accountability when it comes to matters governance, and holding those who have the very sacred duty to deliver, holding them accountable. And so with that, we have 3 of our successful applications discussed and the overviews provided to us. I can see Edda has put up a link on the chat, and it's www.zimcitizenwatch.org. I'm guessing to find out more about that very innovative approach to holding people accountable for campaign promises into government. And yes, he's corrected it. It's www.zimcitizenswatch.org, and you can see it in the chat box. I believe we've had a technical mishap that has seen our last successful applicant, Dear South Africa, not able to join us as we would have hoped. But we will still be providing a lot more information on their project and the parameters of what they would want to do. We will be providing that within our own platforms. And if you follow Charter Africa, the hashtag, or if you follow us on Twitter, you'll be able to see a lot more of those details. But we will still provide a snapshot of the activities through one of my colleagues who will just provide the overall pitch of the project by Dear South Africa, as we just hold that space on their behalf. So I will quickly welcome my colleague Majda, just to give us the finer details of the Dear South Africa project.
Yes, thank you, Andrew. Yeah, so the organization is called Dear South Africa, or Dear SA, is a registered nonprofit organization, that facilitates public participation to help shape legislative policies on different governance levels, municipal, provincial, and national. Their objective in general and their mission is to bridge the gap between society and governments across all sectors by enabling citizens to proactively participate in their democracy and to create meaningful impact in policy formulation. The solution they have proposed for this initiative is called DEAR, and it's an online public participation platform that enables a broad spectrum of citizens from all demographics to submit a comment, an objection, a proposal on a draft or proposed policy at a local, national, or at a national governance level on community issues. With great success, Dear South Africa currently utilizes the in-house developed digital platform and fulfills the needs of South African public participation programs. And the idea is to use this fund to upscale this platform, because due to this rapid growth, it needs additional development and resources. So this is a bit very short overview of their initiative, but yeah, we will continue giving more information on social media and Twitter. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you, Majda. Quite unfortunate they weren't able to join us in person, but as you hear, another project that seeks to utilize an already established platform and upscaling it to drive citizen engagement with key policy-making processes, such as tracking the development of pieces of legislation and being able to provide real-time input that can shape the outcome of those pieces of legislation. And so with that, we have heard from the 4 successful applicants of our Civic Tech Fund and the African Governance Architecture Grant. We will be providing further information and snapshots of the profiles of the successful applicants on our different platforms. You can follow us on @charter_Africa, and you can also follow the hashtag Charter Africa, and you'll keep getting more information and details of the project, some of which we've already had today, and a bit more as we go into the details of implementing this very innovative projects. Checking the chat boxes and not seeing any further questions or comments, and none being flagged to me from the social media platform, I think I can now move on to the concluding remarks for this event. And obviously to begin by thanking you all for joining us to unveil the successful applicants of this grant and getting to hear their different ideas. Extending my particular appreciation to Ambassador Salah Hamad for joining us in this unveiling event and highlighting the support that the African Governance Architecture and African Peace and Security Architecture Secretariat continues to extend to the Charter Project Africa more broadly and to this particular component of the project. We remain very grateful because we're very aware that it is through the valuable support we get from the Secretariat that we are able to engage with the different African Union organs that carry a mandate of democratic governance and form the entire ecosystem of the African governance architecture. And of course, our thanks and gratitude continues to go out to the European Union delegation and the GIZ. Because of their financial resources, we are able to extend these projects, but also their overall political support and technical support enables us to be able to implement these very valuable projects towards the realization of greater public participation and in democratic governance of the continent. As I close, what do we now see? We see that we have 4 projects that are very much focused on boosting public participation in various ways. Boosting public participation by demystifying the normative instruments that inform democratic governance, like the African Charter on Democracy, Elections and Governance, seeking to demystify these instruments, make them accessible to the public, understandable to the public, and therefore using them as platforms to make their demands of duty bearers. We have seen projects that want to create spaces for engagement in real time with duty bearers in relation to processes that those duty bearers are responsible for. So whether it's getting to understand parliamentary processes and being able to engage in the process of lawmaking, these are some of the innovations that we are seeing being advanced by some of these projects. And then very importantly, the aspect of boosting transparency and accountability, moving from the very important element of the campaign process, of the campaign aspect of the political process, where numerous promises are made, and seeing that those promises and pledges are translated into actionable policies that improve the lives of the people. An element of accountability is required, and I'm excited to see that we have a project that is very much designed at tracking the key details of pledges and seeing whether they move from rhetoric to actual concrete action. What will we be doing moving forward? Now that we have unveiled the successful applicants, they will proceed with the process of now very swiftly beginning to execute their projects. And as they do this, beyond the financial support they will receive, the Charter Project Africa will also be availing a series of resources to them that helps them effectively implement their projects. And these resources will include technical support from within the consortium and within the networks that are available to the consortium, technical support that will help them really test out and explore the full boundaries of their civic technology solutions. There will also be resources in the form of fellowships, where we will have fellows within the Charter Project Africa that will be made available to the successful applicants to help them walk through the different elements of their projects as and when they need them. And then also there'll be the aspect of providing the spaces for engagement with some of the duty bearers, where the Charter Project Africa will be very happy to try and make the linkages with key stakeholders such as the AGA Secretariat, AGA APSA Secretariat, I should say, and other policymakers who may be instrumental in either being beneficiaries of the information that is generated by these projects or being key sources of information themselves as duty bearers. In the end, we ultimately hope that there will also be opportunities for learning exchanges, not just between the 4 applicants we've had from today, but within their greater networks of engagement as civil society and with the public constituencies that are available to them. So I thank you all for joining us for this event. I welcome you all, as I mentioned, to continue to keep track of how these projects will be implemented through the respective profiles of the organizations. Mzalendo, I trust that Mzalendo, CVO, Dear South Africa, and the MS Training Center for Development and Cooperation do have a very visible presence online and will continue to share aspects of the implementation of their project on their platforms. But like I mentioned, you can still also follow the Charter Project Africa platform to continue to get updates on the very good work that these teams will be doing. Continue to engage with us, continue to look through our different activities and events, which we shall highlight on our platforms, including a newsletter that is available for subscription. And yes, hopefully we shall be returning in about 8 months' time to report on very successful implemented projects and assessing the impacts that they will have had, not just within their own localities, but to the common vision of improved democratic governance on the continent. So thank you all again for joining us. And it is at this juncture that I will now say kwaheri and enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Thank you very much.
Bye, everyone. Thank you very much.